What's your most shallow dating requirement? Story 1. What feels to me like the most shallow one is no food allergies. I like to cook and bake and try new recipes in restaurants, which would feel a lot less fun if I couldn't share them with my girlfriend without risking her health. Story 2. I don't like puffy nipples on men. The ones that kind of look like big Hershey Kisses or just really big and puffed out. Nah, no thanks, I'll add this. I don't mind there being chest meat. I just personally don't like cuppy pepperoni. It doesn't really make me think less of a person, and most women and gay men don't care. It's just the most shallow thing I personally don't care for. Don't let it get you down. Story 3. I just want to comment that it's funny how men's shallow answers are being upvoted, but me saying I need a six-pack is being downvoted. It's supposed to be shallow. Story 4. Height. I'm a 6-foot-tall woman, and I've dated and seen people shorter than me, and I don't necessarily see an issue with it. However, my experience, it always becomes a problem for them later on in the relationship, when I wear heels, or if they start feeling emasculated through no fault of my own. Story 5. Perfect command of our shared native language. I judge people by their grammar and word choice, and I know it's not cool, kind of snobbish in my defense. I'm a proofreader, and I don't want to feel like I'm working when I read their messages. Edit to clarify, of course. In referring to native speakers, I would never expect a foreigner to be as proficient as a native person, just as much as I imagine a native English speaker wouldn't expect it from me to have a crush on them. And of course I would date someone who doesn't speak my language. My weird dating requirement doesn't apply to foreigners. Story 6. Some folks are answering with appropriate answers, not shallow ones, e.g., hygiene or employed. The question is looking for shallow requirements. For me, I hate nail polish, finger or toe. The bolder the color, the worse it looks. It creeps me out when I have to shake hands in a professional setting and her nails are dark. I cover my discomfort well. So, in a romantic partner that can't be present, that's shallow. If I were in the dating pool, I'd be single forever. Story 7. I like beards, facial hair, and scruff on men, but any man who willingly grows a goatee is an immediate turn-off. Goatees inspire such visceral revulsion in me that it would never work. It reminds me of too many men who, for other reasons, are not good people, and for some reason the goatee seems to be a common facial hair choice among those types. Oh, and sorry all the men out there who have the same name as my recent ex, but even if I think you're hot, the name is a trigger for me. Story 8. Ig. If it constitutes as shallow, boo it. I no longer date men who are still friends with their exes. You can be on good, cordial terms, and if there's co-parenting, okay, fine, but it's come to be problematic literally every time in my experience, so I fully don't with it anymore. Story 9. Balding, but trying to salvage it, like comb-overs or hair plugs. If you're balding, that's cool. That's life. If you're trying to hide it, that's cringe. Shave it. Story 10. I'm not in the dating pool these days, but my shallow thing is that I don't like even a single mole beauty mark near the mouth of a woman. It's a complete deal breaker for me. I realize that is ridiculous, and I accept any and all admonishment I may receive for it, but I can't help it. Edit. I genuinely thought this was something I was alone in and would get a ton of for. Thanks for making me feel better about this. Edit. 2. In the mouth is usually okay. Above is not. Story 11. Need to be attracted to their appearance. At first look will not do that. If you like their personality, the physical attraction will grow. That never works for me, so I won't waste my time. Story 12. Height. Needs to be taller than me. I'm 57, so I feel like that is not too much of an ask. Body composition. I don't mind some extra cake, but I cannot stand really skinny dudes. Looking like a pole bean. Sorry, you said shallow. Story 13. Broke it off with someone because she was obsessed with Twilight. She also tried to get me involved with a pyramid scheme, but that was a while later. Story 14. Dudes who vape. It's strange because I smoke weed, but something about nonstop tobacco vaping and that weird sweet chemical taste in their mouth when we kiss, it's really a turn off for me. And the constant clouds. Vaping indoors. It's a no-go. Story 15. I never thought this was a requirement, but long ago I went on a date with a guy, and he didn't swing his arms at all. At first I couldn't figure out what was throwing me off. When I realized what it was, I just could not get over it. Story 16. Healthy, mentally and physically. Don't have to be uber fit, but also don't need to be out of breath walking up a couple flights of stairs. Healthy. Story 17. Haha. This is going to sound shallow. I guess it is, but I don't like bald guys at all. It's okay if my man goes bald, I will still love him and be into him, but I would never seek out a bald man to date. Story 18. To me, shallow means something you're born with and can't help, e.g., your face, your general bone structure, size, general breast size, propensity towards male pattern baldness, etc. Whereas not shallow are things you can help your weight, fitness, the way you dress, your hygiene, etc. My most shallow dating requirement is that I won't date anyone that's too much on the spectrum or neurodivergent. Sorry that you're wired differently or whatever, But it's really stressful having to spell everything out and redefine basically every single social concept, when most other people can understand what I'm saying in less than a minute. Story 19, septum piercings weird me out. I don't like it. I don't know why, but I don't like it. More metal, more better in basically every case except the septum. Story 20, men will hate me for this, but I need them to be tall. In my defense, I'm not some 52 chick wanting a 64 dude as a status symbol because every dude loves small girls and they know they can have who they want. It's because I'm 59 and will openly admit I'm horribly self-conscious about looking big next to a man too close to my own size or smaller. I weigh about what a thin guy that height would, but I obviously lack the same muscles a guy would have, so I'd more than likely look at least a little bit bigger than him, cause the weight is in squish rather than muscle, and I unfortunately just would not cope with that well at all. It's totally shallow, but it's about me, not them. I don't even find shorter guys less attractive. Being with one would just make me feel all big and ugly. I really wish I didn't care. Story 21 is a black man. Personally, if I seeing a woman, she has to be black or at least half black for us to be dating seriously. I imagine that's quite shallow. Just my honest preference, though. Story 22, good taste in clothing. Like dudes who dress like they never changed their taste in fashion since middle school. No thanks. No matter how pretty the face body is, if he wears ugly clothes, I'm immediately turned off. Story 23, nice eyes, eyebrows, and a face that is interesting. I dislike plain faces. Like I much prefer a less conventionally attractive person over a plain face attractive one. Story 24, they have to know how to swim. I was a competitive swimmer for 11 years. I have a pool in my backyard. I was a lifeguard for 8 years. I adore all things water and swimming are a huge part of my life. A compromise could be made where I would be willing to teach them to swim, but they have to be willing to learn. Story 25, no major mental illnesses. I just got out of a multi-year relationship with a girl that has BPD, and a bunch of other. Not going to go through that again. You got to be able to take care of yourself. Also, not too overweight, a little is okay. But there's a limit and decent dental physical hygiene. Story 26, no severe mental health issues. I know this won't be popular, but I've spent years dealing with people who have a variety of disorders. Dealing with someone who is psychotic and delusional on a regular basis is incredibly draining. The relationship revolves around them. Your feelings will always be a low priority if you're lucky, and they often won't even recognize that in any meaningful way. I did my best. I gave it years. Also nice. I can forgive a lot for that. Lol. Story 27, very petty, very shallow. My ex was abusive, and I still have to have contact with him regularly due to kids. Someone who is better than him in ways that he feels inferior or inadequate adds nothing to the relationship other than me knowing he feels emasculated by the man I am with. Unhealthy, yes. Satisfying when I have to interact with a person I don't want to suss him much, and it could be any one of his insecurities: height, size, looks, money, career, education, personality, being more athletic, etc. Anything that I know he lashed out at me about, and to see some have it and be kind about it and not as hurtful towards others. Story 28, am not into women who are promiscuous or into casual. I want someone who values an emotional connection of some level before physical intimacy. So a history of hookups or a high body count is a significant turnoff for me. I'm not sure if that counts as shallow, but I've seen women get legit mad that them bragging about being slutty didn't have the effect of getting my interest like they thought it would, like there was something wrong with me for it. So, I don't know. Story 29, I'm female, and don't think I could date a guy who's... I have a good number of friends in the LGBTQ community, including a guy who's like a brother to me, but I struggle with a man who was bi. Not sure why, though. There's not really a reason. Story 30, decent skin, scars, and a few pimples don't bother me. However, a large amount facial acne, cystic acne, throws me off. Admittedly, this may be due to my own insecurities regarding my own bad acne as a teen. Story 31, I'm a guy. I wish I wasn't, as it led to a disastrous marriage. They were magnificent in my defense, but I just can't be bothered if a woman doesn't have at least a C cup. It's shallow, it's stupid, I understand all of that, but I can't change what I like. Story 32, they have to know how to properly load a dishwasher. If I see one more person put a bowl face up, I'm swearing off dating forever. Standards are standards. Story 33, they need to be able to type in full sentences with at least passable grammar. My pet peeve is seeing multiple periods to denote a sentence ending. It ticks me right off. Story 34, I cannot date a man who doesn't eat meat. Even if he ate all types of meat, except for beef, it's a no for me. My grandparents were cattle ranchers, and I was raised eating all types of meats, especially beef. Now, cooking for people is one of my favorite things to do, literally a passion of mine. I cannot imagine cooking 2 different meals every time I wanted beef. Like, no, especially if I had children with a man like that. I'm not a short order cook, and definitely don't want someone else in the kitchen cooking something else. Story 35. I'm a straight woman exclusively attracted to men with very long hair. It's got to be psychological because I don't even notice men with a standard short haircut. Story 36. Needs some semblance of higher education. It doesn't have to be university or college, but something past high school. I try to date people who don't have the desire to learn, and it's a no-go for me. Story 37. Honestly, I prefer clean-shaved guys. People have called me immature or even a lesbian for this for a few times, but I just hate body hair on those places like in time areas, chest, belly, leg, or beards, armpits. They just really are not my cup of tea. Heck, I cannot stand hair on my body. It repulses me so much. No matter how natural it is, it's just not for me. Story 38. She has to have, and I don't mean a fitness booty or Kardashian, but in a grab and play with. I dated a girl once who had no and was flat as a pancake back there. It's not just sexy or attractive. I felt bad for her because she had a lot going for her, but every man needs a booty to hold at night. Story 39. Tipping your server bartender in the U.S. I know tipping elsewhere works differently. I've had an instance where I went on a date and she didn't tip after bragging about having an extra 800. There was not a second date. Story 40 has to be just as childish as me. I want to have fun, and if you don't want to go to zoos, go to amusement parks, or play games, and I don't want to date you, I need someone who will enjoy all those things with me. Story 41, not sure if this counts, but I can't date someone who is a picky eater, am a foodie, and I love trying new recipes in restaurants with a significant other, and there's nothing worse than going to a nice restaurant for dinner, and your date asks for a burger and fries. We might as well have gone to McDonald's. Story 42, he has to be older than me. I don't know why myself ever since I was a kid it's been that way. But that's because I assume people died in order, and I said as the wife I want my husband to die first because that's the natural order of things. Dumb, I know. Now that I'm older, I know that death isn't this perfect linear event, and we don't know when the time will come, but yet I still can't shake that little requirement. I think the only exception I can make is for women, but only like 2 to 3 years younger. Story 43 at this point. I'm done dating men who don't know the difference between your, and let's not forget about the their, and theirs or two, and two. Story 44, it wouldn't be the first thing I would ask, but if she has inverted nipples, it's a no. I had an ex some years back, the most sensational but inverted nipples. I would spend so long on them, yet never got a good yield on my investment. Those things didn't want to play. It's like the crown jewels locked away. Her future babies must have gone starving. The poor mites zero. Story 45, if I had $1 for every time a girl had in-shape photos on her dating profile, but was a land whale in person, I'd have enough to buy a used mini fridge. Story 46, honestly, I just really need to find them extremely physically attractive, and I have pretty high standards of what that is. I regularly hear someone called hot, and find them pretty average at best. Unfortunately, I know this sounds awful, but if it helps, I'm really not trying to make it anyone else's problem, and am not actively trying to date at all. The honest truth is I was a very in-the-closet lesbian for a long time and had multiple long relationships with men, got to the marriage kids planning when I realized I wasn't physically attracted to men at all. So now, while obviously any woman will be more attractive to me than a man basic, I feel like I spent so many years settling for something I wasn't into that I'm scared of getting into something that sounds great emotionally and then realizing again I just can't get interested physically. So at least for now, I'm really only going to try something with someone who makes me double take and feel floored. And if that doesn't happen, that's okay too. I think I'm happier alone than not feeling interested physically again. Story 47, I'm going to do a bit of a ranking from most shallow to least, at least in terms of first impressions. Really long fingernails, overly elaborate nail decoration. Anything more than slightly long and painted is just too much for me. It looks like using a phone or a keyboard or a pen might be awkward. I feel like that person prioritizes a look over practicality, which is a big no for me. Smoker, and walking away if you're a smoker, heavy makeup or fake tan, the kind where they look an unnatural color. I'm not going to be a guy saying I don't like makeup, but the kind that looks like it was slapped on with a trowel. I'm not into really tight flat hairdo, like it's either pulling their face or glued to their head like wax. I'm fine with bald, I'm fine with short hair, I'm fine with almost any hair, but really tight makeup hair, no. A smell. I don't want to smell you. I like most of a perfume or antiperspirant, fine. But if you smell bad or I can taste your perfume from across the table. No. Super impractical clothing, huge heels on platforms, clothes that looks stupid levels of uncomfortable. Can't walk in your skirt, see my first point. If you look like you value aesthetics over practicality to the point of disabling yourself. No, teeth, as long as they're clean and on the pale end of the spectrum, not expecting pure white, but yellow or brown or well out manner. If you're rude or brusque, can't chew with your mouth shut, know then beyond that it's pretty much open season. If you're not an inconsiderate person and seem to value conversation, then you got me for the date. And maybe beyond. Story 48, as a gay person, my requirement would be that they're also gay, as in homosexual, not bi, not queer, not non-binary, not pan, not trans, not curious, not figuring it out, not closeted gay. I certainly don't think of this requirement as shallow, but some people love to insist otherwise and throw around asinine terms like genital fetishization and biphobia to try and guilt you into dating them. It's kind of a longer, more roundabout way of arriving at good old-fashioned homophobia when you think about it. Story 49, no more than 2 cats. The last contender had pictures of him with 3 different cats on his profile. I am pretty certain he has 5 cats. He talked about those cats way too much, too. Story 50, no nose rings. I just can't. My partner has occasionally brought up getting their nose pierced, and I have been upfront that if they had a pierced nose when we met, I never would have dated them, and they would be destroying our relationship if they got one now. Story 51, this may be an unpopular opinion, but I hate people who think their money makes them attractive. Like, I want you to have money, but do not brag about it or think you can judge others based on their income. If you make good money, be humble. That's sexy as... Story 52, they can't come from a perfect family. I don't think many people that do would have a single grasp on the things I dealt with and probably wouldn't understand a lot about who I am because of it. And I even think that in theory, it'd be cool to be part of a perfect family as a transplant. But I don't think they would like who I am because I'm not them. Story 53, I once had a guy tell me I had to be waxed, no exceptions. I mean, I did anyway, but most guys I found it didn't really matter as long as they were getting laid. Story 54, this is the absolute dumbest requirement. But for me, after a lot of experience in the dating scene, I came to realize that whomsoever I date has to be originally from the same area where I grew up, and I do not live anywhere close to there. But it's a very specific upbringing, and there's just always some spark missing when that character or sensibility isn't present. Have managed to find plenty of opportunities to date, though, because we're kind of born to be transplants, lol. Also, teeth. Story 55, not minding that I'm a hapless introvert who practically never reaches out to anybody first, even my closest family friends, but will be very accommodating and open and friendly when someone does reach out to me. First, my low self-esteem could never allow me to reach out first if I'm not 1,000,000 sure they actually want to interact with me. And the only way to be sure of that is if they reach out, so, in other words, I'm fine with never having so. LOL. Story 56, no obesity. I can maybe date someone who's a fat if they're not lazy and have good hygiene, but if you're morbidly obese, not a chance. Also, if your face is really ugly, as terrible as it sounds, that doesn't mean you have to be tall or handsome, just not freakishly ugly.